Hi, welcome back to the International Space Station Flight Control Room in the Mission Control Center in Houston, where we have again with us today Mario Runco, an astronaut who we talked with earlier in the week about the Venus transit and all the exciting activities that were going on in association with that. He's back to give us a report on how everything went. Thanks for coming back, Mario.
Well, thanks for having me, and it has been a very exciting week. The response was just tremendous around the world and locally here in Houston and in the United States. I was impressed with Don's performance, not only in the quality of some of his images, but also in the sheer quantity. And he's a good photographer, and in attempting to get good images, photographers know that they need to snap a lot to get that one premier image that just captures it. In the way of numbers, we got down, at least as far as I know at this point, at least about 1,800 images of the transit throughout the course of the 6 hours that it took place. And Don was not up the whole time. Just remember that. He, at the start, took some images on the first contacts and then quit, and then came back later when the Venus was more or less in the middle of the sun and the center point, and then again later on when the third and fourth contacts took place. So he was up for short periods of time in discrete times. And I might add, too, that Don was not the only one snapping photos. He had employed the rest of the crew. They were all up as well. Don't tell anybody in the control center about that.
We'll keep it low.
And so they were all taking pictures, all enjoying the moment, the historical event, the moment in time, if you will. And then Don sent me a note. He says they had found himself a single ship again. They had all kind of quit and went to bed and left the work to Don.
But, you know, his enthusiasm is certainly catching. It seems like a lot of people were very interested in this. I think a lot of people went out and watched, or at least for a few minutes. And it just seemed like everybody across the country and probably even around the world was paying attention.
And that seems to be the case. I know myself here in Houston, I had several hundreds of pairs of the solar filter glasses, and I started passing them out, and I quickly ran out, and I didn't have enough, unfortunately, for everyone that wanted some. So,
Well, I think we're seeing here
oh,
some
great.
video from the Solar Dynamics Observatory of the actual event.
And these were spectacular. They had some great images of the context of the entire transit. We can see the different filters on the sun to bring out different aspects of it in behind Venus. Uh, and Venus, unlike the weather in some places on Earth, cooperated very well, was right on time, and exited on time. And we won't be talking about this again for 121 and a half years, unfortunately. But there is, by the way, just as an aside, there is a transit of Mercury that's not so far off.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Will that be kind of the same thing to see or different?
Along the same lines, Mercury is of course much smaller, and so it's not as big, and it might be harder to discern. Those of you who use the solar filter glasses for a direct look at the sun and not through some alternative means, it was hard to pick out Venus at the start and finish because it was so close to the edge, and if you didn't know where to look, you may not have found it. And Mercury may be a little more difficult than that.
Okay. Well, I think we have some specific photos that you wanted to be sure and show. So I think if we can get the first one of those now.
Great. The photos, yeah, these are a couple of photos that Don had taken, and these are quite telling in that the one on the left is taken not during the transit, but through the scratch pane window. That was the cupola window without the scratch pane removed, and you could see how the sun is very much washed out. The one on the right is during the transit through window one, and it had the scratch pane removed. So it was rather fortuitous that we were able to accomplish that and get the scratch pane removed. And the one on the right, you could actually start to see some sunspots show up in the image. And this is with the 762 nanometer filter that makes the image look the orange tinge to it. And this is the same sort of filter that is in the solar filter glasses that we have. And that's a filter that's put on the front end of the camera.
Okay. And then here's the second one.
Oh, the second one, and this is with the white light mylar solar filter that Don had taken up. Again, the one on the left is with the scratch panes, barely any sunspots visible. And again, this was not taken during the transit, so you won't see the spot of Venus on there. The one on the right was taken during the transit. However, you can see the sunspots that do show up in the image. And for orientation purposes, the one on the left, you can see maybe on the viewers at home can't see this, but the two sunspots in the middle lower right are the same, but they're in a different orientation because the images are clocked a little differently. They're the same as the ones in the middle lower right on the right image. But clearly, the scratch panes removed gave us a substantial benefit in the clarity of the photos. I think we have one more, do we not?
Yes, here it is.
Okay, and then this is a third one where you can see the one on the left was the previous one with the scratch paint on. The middle one is actually one of the Russian windows, and we can
Oh, okay.
see that in the Russian windows are good quality optical windows as well, and the sunspots begin to show up there. And then the third one was the first 762 nanometer. I wanted to get a comparison as to what the two different images look like between the two different filters for everyone. So it was quite a success, not only in enthusiasm, number of images, and I believe, and we haven't had time to go through all of the 1,800 images that Don had sent down. In that, I think he actually caught Venus at the contact points when it was tangent to the edge of the sun. Maybe we could show those at a later date or publish those online. We're hoping to review those and find those the best. And some of those we might even be able to see the black drop effect from the atmosphere of Venus that Don had mentioned in his video. So still more to be done. Like all missions, if you will, when we do experimentation and collect data, it takes a much longer time to review the data and plow through what you've got than it does to actually do the experiment itself.
Right, and I know you can continue to go to venustransit.nasa.gov to see the photos that are already online, not just from the International Space Station, but a number of different sources. So a lot of good information there. Again, it's venustransit.nasa.gov. And before we wrap up, I assume you went out and watched for a little while yourself as well?
Yes, I did. Wouldn't have missed it. I actually was in the studio right beforehand with the NASA Edge group, and fortunately, my timing was such that I was able to go outside. And fortunately for us here in Houston, that the skies were clear, very much so. So I had visibility, and I used a telescope with a camera. I got some personal images of it. And I had the solar filter, of course, all the safety things. I can still see the uh, and it was just a moment in time, and I was thinking what might have been in James Cook's mind when he was viewing it in Tahiti in 1769. It was just a spectacular, singular moment that I won't forget, and I hopefully many others will not forget either.
Well, we talked a little bit last time about how it's not necessarily the same scientific significance as it meant for the earlier transits, but still, obviously, a lot of interest in the photos. Why do you think that captures people's imagination?
Well, I think it puts them at points in time that and connects them, if you will, with the cosmos. That's a big statement. I understand, but as we here on Earth on this small planet, in the big picture of things, pretty much insignificant in compared to the rest of the universe, and this sort of thing connects us with the universe because it goes to time scales that are beyond the lifetimes of us as individuals.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming out both times. We really appreciate it. I think a lot of people enjoyed it, and we will hope to hear more about these sorts of events from the International Space Station in the future.